Greetings, YouTube, and welcome once again to another Cunt Stream, where we will be subjected to the whims of Schmeckle, the ridiculousness of Brockus, the holy shit of Magnus, the art of Samaj, some crazy shit from Ren and Igor, and who the fuck is Darnell?
Can we get him for all of our intros? That was fantastic. I love that.
that is sort of the master of the lively, loud intro.
Yes.
I'd like to remind everyone, if you want to check out Red Robot and the rest of the people on the B list, check them out every Sunday morning. With that said, there's your plug.
If I might, next week, this Sunday, is my 3-year anniversary of Sunday Funday, where I will be doing a marathon until I can't stand no more.
Well, hold on a second. It's your anniversary this Sunday?
Yeah, 3 years. 3 years of Sunday Funday is this Sunday.
Fuck, we're going to have to plug you all week.
3 years of subjecting YouTube to shitheads like me and Red and...
Oh my god, that all right. How many subs does the Sunday Funday have?
I have 1,800 subs.
1,800? Okay, that's not a bad number. All right, cool. All right, so enough of talking about you. Let's talk about the nerd-related stuff. Darnell?
Nerds!
Yes.
Yay. You just pulled up the article. Something about Stan Lee.
Okay. So turns out someone managed to hack Stan Lee's Facebook and Instagram accounts.
What? Fuck? Why the fuck would anybody do this? I don't understand. Go into details, please.
And I'd like to remind you that there have been some really strange stories involving Stan Lee lately.
Oh, yeah, there's another story I found. But basically, so he posted on Twitter saying that, hey, somebody hijacked my Facebook and Twitter. I want everyone to know whoever's writing them for like the past week has been a fraud, has been impersonating me. How can I get him back? You know, and they did a post saying, hey, thank you all very much. You guys helped me get my social media accounts, and he pretty much did a video thanking people.
Well, there you go. That's Stan Lee for you right there.
Yeah, it also shows his age, where he doesn't understand the internets and the power of two-factor authentication.
Yeah, that's true.
The other thing to keep in mind, I highly doubt Stan Lee actually runs his own Facebook and all that stuff. He does have a team of people that do all the social media stuff for him. He's a little too old to keep up to date with any of this stuff.
Well, it could be Mark Wade, since CB Sobolski told him, get your fucking ass off Twitter and other such.
Well, I mean, for good fucking reason, because Mark Wade decided to go through an entire day of harass and bully the shit out of fucking Anarch Press's owner. And then eventually, when Anarch Press pulls out, talks to fucking diversity in comics in private and everything like that, all of a sudden, Mark has a nice phone call for Anarchic Press.
We haven't even finished. What?
I was going to say, this is just the image I had in my head when I saw this news article.
That makes sense.
We haven't even.
All right, continue on.
We haven't even finished the first topic, and Brox is already going to Jawbreakers.
Oh, well, there you go.
All right,
Well,
Magnus brought up Mark Wade. I fucking hate that guy.
Well, let's not forget that if you're going to talk nerd and comics, you also have to talk about the stupid shit these assholes at Marvel are doing. Why the fuck they even let these assholes remain there is beyond me, because they have completely fucking ruined a company I practically fucking grew up with.
Well, I think that there's a couple of reasons why some of these people are still there. Because remember, since CB Sobolski took charge, there has been a slight reckoning. People have been fired. Some people have been rearranged and moved to different locations. And I think that that's a good sign. But also, it's Marvel, and a lot of people like Marvel's reputation is kind of in a shitter right now, and like comics anyway. And who wants to work at Marvel?
Kind of in the shitter, dude. But fucking Mark Wade's captain in that ship. He just bypassed the Tidy Bowl man on the way down to the sewers.
Oh yeah, you're right. I was trying to be generous, but oh my god, it's so hard.
But You already know me enough, Samaj. I don't pull my punches when it comes to dickheads like Mark Wade, especially after he proved he doesn't understand the concept of what the customer is always right meant. He's been on my shit list ever since.
He's been growing on everyone's shit list. But I think that quite
He used to
literally,
be my absolute favorite writer, and now he's on my fucking shit list.
well, there was an invasion of like social justice cancer into almost every industry imaginable. And I imagine that, he's talked to plenty of these people and probably warped his perspective on a lot of things. I imagine there's a lot of good people out there who have believed a lot of stupid things.
Well, there's a such. I hate to say this, Samaj, but there's a such thing as warping your perspective and finger fucking it to death.
And there's also a thing as you've put in your time, so now you have the seniority to put your views out there.
Yeah, that's a factor. Well, there's another guy at Image. I forget his name. The guy who does Savage Dragon, but he had very much the same thing. I mean, Savage Dragon was a pretty solid, good book. Issue after issue, lots of action, lots of violence, and great storytelling. Well, great to an extent. Big muscular guys, sexy busty women, and now it's still there, but lots of SJW nonsense. I mean, the main characters in there moved to Canada to get away from Trump. I mean, what does that tell you?
And also, there's a lot more sexploitation down to the point that it's even like, hey, giant titties in the opening issue. I mean, in the opening cover.
Yeah, it's essentially become porn, which is normally that would be a good thing, but that's not what it was supposed to be. So I don't know what that's all about. But that again is another example of how it's not just Marvel. It's also it used to be DC too, but DC was going to go belly up if they didn't turn shit fast. That's why we got DC Rebirth.
Bottom line gets people to sort their shit out real quick.
Well, and let's just look at the fact that, I mean, you guys have seen, I don't think anybody here who's nerdy enough is a stranger to things like that one picture of fucking Red Sonja where she looked like Smeagol in a metal bikini with a red wig on. We fights them precious, yeah.
Blood God.
That was such a terrible
wondered to
picture.
myself a little bit about on this subject of Stan Lee. I think if we're still on that topic, but he strikes me as in a weird way, timing, age, and a few other things wise, he's a lot like the nerd equivalent of Hugh Hefner. He's the grand old man of the Enterprise, but he really has no real influence. He just features occasionally on the covers, or in his case, cameos.
Yeah.
Well, we just have to we just all have to get together and talk Stan Lee into walking around in a red robe and carrying a pipe with him.
He did that in Iron Man 1 or 2.
Oh God! I forgot about that.
He was Hugh Hefner. He did a cameo as that.
By the way, speaking of superhero comic related things, somebody told me that Margot Kidder died, and I'm like, no, that can't be. She's always been such a great kidder.
God damn you!
Come on, she was 60 something. It's fine.
No, Red. If you're gonna carry that joke, carry it to the end. She was 69 when she died.
Oh, hey, is the wind really bad on my end?
No.
No.
Okay, good. Fantastic. No, it's I've been trying to find a fucking area where there's like no goddamn noise, but I realized my house is going to be noisy. It doesn't matter. So I went outside.
You're doing good, man.
Anyway, what were we talking about while I was trying to fucking desperately find someplace quiet?
We were talking about the Stan Lee.
We sort of circled back to Stan Lee and talking about stories or legends that we've heard of Stan Lee. And I did want to share one real quick. There was a story I heard on Comic Pro's Secret, Ethan Van Sciver's channel, about how he was sitting next to Stan Lee, talking with him as he was signing autographs and all that stuff. And he asked him, what's it like about like meeting your fans and all that after all this time? And Stan Lee said, "These aren't my fucking fans." And these are just people waiting for me to die and then cash in on my name.
Oh.
Now, I don't know if that was true or not. I remember hearing about that, and I'm thinking, I could see that.
Yeah, so he's not entirely he's not entirely wrong. There are some people like that, just trying to get his signature, hoping it suddenly becomes valuable when he dies. Me, I don't know. If I had a chance to meet Stan Lee, I would dig out the oldest Marvel comic that I had that he had a hand in to have him sign that, because I just want to, I would just want the souvenir. I mean, the only reason I don't know, the closest I've ever come to that is a writer named Glenn Cook. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him, but
I have.
I got a chance to meet him once, and I was there primarily just at the con. He happened to be there, and I thought, well, shit, I need to get his autograph. I bought a new book because I didn't have the book I wanted him to sign with me. It was at home, so I have 2 copies of this book. It's called The Tower of Fear. It's fucking amazing. It's one of his few one-shots, because he tends to do series, like not trilogies, but this was a one-shot. It's fucking amazing. And I met him, and his wife told me a story that was really interesting. He said that the book that I liked so much was based on a nightmare he had one time. He woke up in a cold sweat thinking someone had kidnapped their child, and he decided to use that as the material to write The Tower of Fear. And I was stunned.
Wow.
I felt almost guilty for it being my favorite book.
That's actually
But Red, that just does kind of go to show that, unless you know the story behind it, it's like the reason the story worked was because you empathized with it in ways that just, it hit the right chord. But yeah, I was kind of hunting around while you guys were talking. Brockus, you heard me talking about the whole Red Sonja thing, right?
No.
Well, here, I since I've got pictures, there's the one where she looks like Smeagol in a fucking armored bikini.
Oh yeah.
Red, you didn't see this?
That there was a reason behind that though. I think there was some kind of magic was turning her into a goblin queen or some shit like that. That's the premise to that particular
well,
issue.
if that's it, then fine, whatever. But I'm sorry, but if you're talking Red Sonja, I mean, this isn't the picture I was looking for, but it's one of the few that I had. That to me is Red Sonja. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Red Sonja, ironically, is a character that popped up in the Conan Barbarian comic books back in the 1920s or 30s or something like that. Survived for this fucking long and is now more popular than Conan.
Yeah, but don't forget, Brockus, do not forget, she married Wolverine at one point.
Oh, yeah. I think that's because Marvel bought the rights to Red Sonja somewhere back in the 80s or 90s or some shit like that. And they're the ones who have actually been keeping her comic books alive. Red Sonja is a badass. Like, if you really want to look at one of the most badass females in fucking comic books, like a woman that will make every man feel inadequate, Red Sonja is your woman. I swear that woman is like, she is femininity personified with just the right amount of masculinity to the point where it's like, I'm going to fuck her. I will die doing so, but I'm going to fuck her.
Well, the funniest thing about that whole storyline where she married Wolverine, I think it was like sort of an Elseworlds kind of thing or a what if comic, and Wolverine got thrown back into the past. Well, guess who's there? And he kicks her ass. And you remember her whole thing was she would never marry a man that could not defeat her.
Yeah.
So, of course, Wolverine whoops her ass, and, well, there you go.
Yeah, I think there are only maybe 4 or 5 people in the Marvel Universe that could actually take her on in hand-to-hand combat and actually win. Shockingly, no, I don't believe Black Panther or Captain America is on that list.
I would expect Captain America to be one of the few.
Captain America is an amazing fighter, and truth be told, he's actually a better fighter than Wolverine. In an actual fight, like, with Captain America versus Batman, I do not believe for 1 second that Screw Attack was being genuine in their research and shit, because they nerfed Captain America's strength, stamina, and actual like fighting capabilities a great deal. Because if you go back and watch that particular Batman versus Captain America Screw Attack thing, I'm like, I don't agree with this, because you are basically trying to say Captain America is on the exact same level as Batman. That's not even remotely true.
Yeah,
he was put to peak physical condition in the 1940s. He has gone beyond that since then. That is how Captain America. I'm sorry, but anyone will tell you when it comes to this kind of like, training your body and all that stuff, you get stronger, you get faster, and you get better over time. Bruce has a limit. Cap was built to not have limits, sort of.
Yeah, he basically has more to work with and a lot of time.
Yeah. But the reason why I don't think Cap would actually beat Sonya in a fight is because, like, I think Cap's old school thinking of, like, go easy on your opponent kind of thing, that would get in the way. I think because they're not trying to kill each other, Cap would eventually lose.
He's got too many advantages over her.
Cat, forget Red.
He be beaten by him.
No, Red, you got quiet on us there. You need to turn up your volume. No, but I was going to say, Red, damn good and well it would come down to, well, I just don't hit girls.
Oh, no. He's not that dumb. He is not that dumb.
Dude, he will punch a chick in the face. He's fought Black Widow more times than I care to count.
I firmly believe if he can whoop Wolverine's ass, and we've already gotten to the point where if Wolverine can beat her canonically and he can beat Wolverine, there's no reason to think that he wouldn't beat her.
Well, I don't think it can count it as canonical though, because it was like I said, it was one of those what if storylines. But those are awfully fun to read. I have to admit.
I wonder if there is, like, since you mentioned that, because I never actually stopped to thought about, like, Captain America fighting Black Widow. But I wonder if someone should just take a panel of that actually happening, of, like, let's say, Cap smacking Widow with a shield and having him say, "Now make me a sandwich."
Oh, no, come on. All we have to do is just go to Secret Empire with that scene of Cap snapping Widow's neck.
Oh, well, then how is she supposed to make that sandwich? I mean,
no, that's him smacking her for making the sandwich bad.
Oh, wow.
That's terrible.
Honey,
I said no tomato. Wong.
What? No beer with the sandwich?
To this
Captain
day,
America, white beater.
To this day,
hey, Igor, you know what they say? If your father was a white beater, very likely you become a white beater as well.
Dopo, I will smack the shit out of you. Anyways, I still find it fucking hilarious that to this day, Stan Lee is known for some of the greatest comic book characters ever created: the X-Men, Spider-Man, the Incredible Hulk, Iron Man. But Cap cannot claim at all that he created Captain America. I'm sorry, Stan cannot claim that he ever created Captain America, due to the fact that that was a character that Stan wrote for, but never actually made. Somebody else made the character.
I remember reading those own little things about that, where he in a book about comics, where he was talking about how he wrote for Cap.
Yep, and then shortly after that, the publication company he was working for, which I believe was Timely at the time, they eventually asked him, like, do you want to write other characters and stuff like that? And eventually, who did they come up with? I think Stan Lee's first original character was Namor, but I think somebody else actually came up with that.
No, somebody else came up with Namor.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of miss Jack Kirby. All the
hell I miss Jack Kirby. There's something just weirdly magical about Jack Kirby's designs. They're so ridiculously distinctive, but so weird at the same time. Like, I want to know what drugs he was on. I don't want any of it, but I want to know.
If you ever feel like having a trip, you ever see the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles tribute to Jack Kirby when he passed away?
Yes, that was fantastic.
It was brilliant.
Oh, I kind of missed that.
I used to have a reasonably good collection of Commandy. If you know that comic,
No.
Bandai, I guess you could call it. It's basically it's a post-apocalypse comic where Commandy, the last boy on Earth, sort of something like that.
I know
really
it.
Weird comic.
That's the one with the sentient tigers, right?
Yeah, it's basically it's Manimal World. It's the furry's wet dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that one. It's the world's flooded and there's like sentient half tigers walking around. Yeah, I know that one.
Slightly off topic. Did you guys see where where some guy killed and ate a furry and said, "Well, if he's gonna act like an animal."
Oh.
Yeah, I saw this earlier on Twitter and I was like, "Wait,
that's not right."
Since we're back on the Stan Lee thing, I was going to ask, have you guys heard the story about the guy who stole his blood?
What?
Mm-hmm. Las Vegas.
Stan Lee's blood?
Las Vegas.
It gets worse than that.
Wait. So the nurse that was originally working on Stan Lee, the one that apparently abused him and claimed that he sexually harassed her, she stole a vial of his blood, claiming that it was for blood screenings, sold it to someone who then forged his signature onto Black Panther comics to try and sell them in Las Vegas.
Wow, that's fucking crazy.
The actual fuck.
People are fucked up.
Hey, what was that comic book that you were talking about?
Black Panther comics. Oh,
not you.
Yeah. Sorry.
How do you spell that?
It's like Command D, but with a K. And it has an I at the end because it's.
Is that a DC character?
Yes.
I think so. Yeah.
Because I think that character showed up in the Batman, the Brave and the Bold cartoon too.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it's a really odd character. I think he's interesting, but it's a very odd comic book.
Yeah, I found it. It's
I used to own about.
Here we go.
I used to own about a third of the run because somebody at a flea market was selling most of it, and my grandfather would pick up books for me, but he didn't know anything about comic books. He just would pick up things he thought I might be interested in. So as a result, I had a lot of horror comics. I had stuff like that he had no idea what was going on. He just thought, "Oh, it's a comic book. Read like that." And he was right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
it was just a case of he had no idea what he was looking at or what he was doing. So I got some really random stuff, and most grown people would not give a child all of those horror comics. But my grandfather,
sorry, I didn't read this one.
No. That's the character, but it's a much newer version.
Yeah, this is the new series that came out. But I'm just saying the name.
Doppel, shut your mouth. Magnus, start talking so everyone can enjoy the Jessica Negriness.
Fuck off.
That's the only version of Kylo Ren I think I would actually accept, to be honest.
Oh no, I accept the original Kylo Ren, but I definitely want to put my dick in this Kylo Ren.
I didn't see this.
Dude, you need to follow Jessica Negri.
The Last Jedi a whole lot more interesting.
Well, that and also follow Shadman because
oh god,
this is a rendition of one of his drawings.
I am definitely in the camp of Shadman. No, don't do that.
Sometimes,
yes.
Sometimes I go on Shadbase and I'm just horrified, and then there are other times where I'm like, yeah. Most of the time, it's horrified.
Shadbase is kind of like you just go in there and it's like a landmine when you click that link.
Yeah, it's like, will there be dick? Will there be inappropriate smoking? Who knows?
Yes.
Yes. And all the above.
Most of the time, it's, oh my God, am I going to get like busted for underage porn? Because I've seen a lot of his work of like women who are of age, legal age. And I'm like, hell yeah. And then I click on one that's like some fucking lolly character. It's like, oh my God, no. What the fuck?
Magnus, you remember when he did lolly Hillary Clinton?
Oh God!
Yeah,
Oh God!
he'll
Yeah,
only
Shadman,
quote
that's
on
definitely a
front.
case of Shadman. No.
You know, one of the things that surprises me about the Chad Man, because it's a lot of what he does is very twisted and far out there, but there's a lot of women who watches or go through his website, and
Oh,
you see
yeah.
a lot of cosplayers, see a lot of them retweeting them. I mean, like,
I
goddamn.
think sometimes the women
There's some
are the biggest fan
Canadian
of the
chicks,
dick girl. I swear to
cosplaying.
God.
There's some Canadian chicks cosplaying as the pizza delivery trap.
Oh God!
Oh yeah.
Those photos were absolutely hilarious.
There's a cosplayer that I actually follow, and her girlfriend both love Shadman. Apparently, one of them actually did an entire photo shoot specifically for the website Shadbase, and I was just like, okay, you know it's on here, right?
I just remembered. I got this from that one tweet that I saw that I thought was funny, because this is kind of the reaction you have when you click on a picture on Twitter and it opens up and oh my God, she's got a dick. You just have that look.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm not gonna say always. Sometimes I can tolerate a certain amount of penis.
You homo.
Chaos
Hey,
is in the
I'm not gonna say I fap to it. I'm saying I can tolerate it.
Chaos is in the chat saying Screw Attack just did some fan service after saying Spider-Man would beat Batman. Lots of Batman fans, lots of triggered Batman fans couldn't handle Spider-Man winning. Yeah, I don't know if you guys ever saw that. Screw Attack did a video. It was two different Batman versus. One was Batman versus Captain America. Another one was Batman versus Spider-Man. I think they did actually recently another one, which was, I think, Batman versus someone else. I can't remember who. But basically, dude, if you've ever... Oh, yeah, it was Black Panther. If you've ever wanted to see fucking Batman fanboys just lose their shit, go and watch the Batman fucking, losing to Spider-Man or losing to Black Panther, and then post that in a comic book group and watch the fucking nightmare unfold, because these people, dude, there are some Batman fans out there that cannot handle the idea that he will lose. They cannot handle it so much so that they will fight tooth and nail. Like, it's impossible, Batman, fucking.
And then what I say to that is, and here I present to you Bane.
I was about to say,
Bane, Darkseid.
I've had this argument with people before. The thing is with Batman is a lot of it is preparation. If he's got enough preparation, he's probably going to fuck you. But if you don't, he's just a guy. He's a well-equipped guy. He's one of the smartest guys on earth, but he's just a guy.
The thing is with Batman, you always have to remember is that this guy has a suitcase with your name on it.
Yeah,
and you're screwed no matter what.
But if he hasn't had a chance to make the suitcase, he's not as dangerous as you think he is.
Well, the thing is too, a lot of people got to think. A lot of the time, you could probably run 100 simulations of Batman versus who fucking ever, and Batman would probably lose at least 40% of the time because of lack of preparations or because of a lucky break on the other guy's side. Batman's not perfect. He's not going to win every fucking fight because. For one thing, his comics would be boring as shit if he always won just right out of the fucking gate.
Exactly.
Well, then you also tack onto that. He does he's just a mortal man. So against certain things like magic, he's doubly fucked. How do you prep for it?
Well, that was actually one of my favorite things about Justice League Dark. I don't know if anyone actually watched that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Justice League Dark was fucking. What the scene where he scared the fucking ghost?
Yeah, he scared the shit out of an actual ghost, which is kind of funny. But well, I mean, it wasn't necessarily just a ghost. It was a Soul Reaper. But dude, Batman through that whole fucking movie is in essence just useless. And it keeps getting brought up over and over again how fucking useless he actually is and shit. Now, he does do some pretty interesting stuff, but like I can't remember there was this one point in the movie where I think it was specifically John Constantine who was just like, what are you even here for? And like, I guess he just kind of intimidated the ghost and all that stuff. He's like, oh, maybe you do have your uses.
Well, and let's not forget, there were a couple of times where Batman got to throw his hat into the ring, like with his gadgets here and there, because like when he stabbed the guy with the, I think it was adrenaline, and brought him back with the one guy they were trying to save. And then, of course, that point where they were fighting Faust. For anybody who haven't seen it, I haven't spoiled anything yet. Fuck you, go watch this. It's been out for a long while.
Yeah, it is actually really good. It's I gotta say, the DC animated movies cannot be beaten. Even the MCU does not hold a candle to the DC animated movies.
Oh,
but you're right. Some of them are really, really good.
Well, let me
they have more hits than misses.
Let me put it this way, Brockus. Have you seen Batman Ninja yet?
No, I haven't. I've been waiting for like a day where I don't have to do shit.
Ancient Japan's Batman in samurai armor and giant robots. Fucking go watch. It's so goddamn ridiculous. You'll probably watch it twice in a row.
I've already watched.
DCU is much better than their film equivalent.
Well, this is different.
I'm not gonna argue on that one.
This is different because this is actually like an anime in Japan and all that stuff. I will say, one, Tara Strong comes back to play Harley Quinn and knocks it out of the park like she always does. It's so fucking good. Second thing about that, her and Joker have like the best time like in the whole movie, and it's a joy to watch them on screen.
Oh yeah,
it's so much fun.
Just the fact that they threw in like all the. I think in this movie they actually threw in all the right villains that you could see wreaking havoc in ancient Japan. Like what all villains they had? They had Poison Ivy, they had the Penguin, Joker and Harley, Deathstroke.
Oh yeah,
Deathstroke. Well, I'm just talking about the villains because Catwoman kind of flip flops in that movie.
Well, that's kind of a mistake, I guess.
And what Two-Face?
Yeah. Grodd.
Yep, and Gorilla Grodd. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I thought Grodd was Flash's thing, but it's like, well, he's a DC villain still. So
I love Bear Dogs losing their shit in the chat right now. Honestly, I'm sick and tired of people trying to goad me into some bullshit ass comic book rage crap because it's fucking annoying. Most of the people I talk to have a bias against Superman. They hate him because he's OP, and yet at the same time, these are the same people that will back characters like Thor or Goku because they like
Superman. I think he's a good character.
I like Superman. I just think they've killed him and brought him back a few too many times.
Oh, definitely.
I'm not gonna, I can't fib on that one. That's certainly a thing.
Well, I mean, you got to think though. Superman and Batman have both been around since what, the 1930s, 1940s. I mean, they've been around for fucking ever. There's only so many times you can come up with some bullshit way for these guys to save the day. That was the whole reason for Doomsday killing off Superman and Bane breaking Batman's back was kind of...
Doomsday killed Superman because the author of that comic specifically stated he was tired of the fans not appreciating Superman. So they came up with a plot to kill Superman. That is the explicit reason. He has stated it in interviews time and time again.
Well, no, I'm talking about the overall, like, I think the only reason the comic company even allowed it was because, Superman's getting a little stale. We need to spice things back up. That's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, but that's the major problem that tends to actually happen. Like, look at the actual publications, or not necessarily, but look at the actual runs of comic books from the 1930s all the way to now. From 1939 all the way to the 1980s, Superman was the guy of DC. He's the one who caused DC's fan base to grow more and more. It wasn't Batman. Despite what any Batman fan tries to fucking say, despite how many times they want to try to troll anyone by saying, like, oh, Batman's the reason why DC's even got on it. No, motherfucker, you don't understand.
Superman.
Batman was like one of the relatively popular characters. He was in the Holy Trinity, but he wasn't the man. Superman always was the man. It wasn't until the 80s when The Dark Knight Returns came out that Batman suddenly got more popular than Superman. Wow. And then in the 90s, the popularity of Superman just grew so much so, and the hate for Superman got even greater because the more fan base that Batman had, the more hate would follow Superman.
Well, and
Go ahead.
If you really want to throw it out there, I'm a Batman fan myself, but if you really need to throw it out there, it's like, yeah, well, Batman was originally a fucking ripoff of The Shadow anyway, so go fuck yourself.
That I've always felt that was like such an unfair thing to do. But because that's Razorfist's giant raging boner for anyone that ripped off anything original. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I mean, how do I put this? People stop watching the goddamn Shadow. They'll watch Batman. I wonder why.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with Shadow. His rogues gallery stunk.
Well, and Red, the part of the reason I think that the Shadow lost so much appeal was because he wasn't as flexible in the way he was portrayed. Because I mean, the Shadow lost mainstream popularity because there's only his kind of hero only really worked back in those days. With the big hat and the scarf around his face and the trench coat and all that shit.
The outfit's fine, but they didn't keep him up with the times.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Thank you, Igor.
But it's kind of like people that get butthurt over it. I believe the old thing was where I think at one point that the estate over literally was what's her name now? The lady who wrote the Vampire Chronicles. What the fuck is her name?
Oh, Anne Rice.
Yeah, Anne Rice tried to sue World of Darkness, and somebody somewhere went, Anne, the estate of Bram Stoker would like to speak to you.
Yeah, no shit.
And it's like, where people that get upset about like, well, this ripped off Lord of the Rings. And I'm like, look. I know there's something you may not have heard of, but there's the Ring of the Nibelung. And my point is that I guarantee you, if we dug a little bit, we could find something that the Shadow ripped off. And if we dug a little bit, we could find the things that Elric of Melmanet ripped off. Because that's another one that Razorfist's hobby horses, how much The Witcher ripped off Elric. And he's not wrong. That's the thing. I'm not even saying he's wrong. My point is like,
which one gets more airtime?
But Jesus Christ, people.
Well, yeah. Red, this kind, you're actually touching on an observation and lamentation that I made about 15, 20 years ago, where it's like, sooner or later, originality is no longer going to exist because, all these people have been coming up with this character and this character. So it's almost, even if you shut yourself out, didn't research anything, came up with an original character in your own head and wrote it out, almost guaranteed you could probably look through literary, movie, and fucking comic book history and find one where somebody could look at you and say, you totally just ripped off this character.
Exactly.
You can shorten it up to what I actually tend to say.
The goddamn motherfucker.
Like, basically what I tell people when it comes to anything like this, like comic books, manga, anything, it doesn't matter what it is. But basically, there is no such thing as an original idea anymore. All it is taking what currently exists and spinning it to make it your own. Well, for fuck's sake, we are currently doing a platform that has been going on since the 1920s.
Beginning of. That's been true since like the fucking Renaissance, man.
The fucking nerd fight is as old as nerds.
Yeah, it's just our nerddom is comics and such. Back then, it would have been who's your favorite artist, who did what scene from the Bible better. Who's
your favorite composer?
What's your favorite mythology?
I kind of want Samaj. I kind of want Samaj to draw us all, like all of us, in some sort of like Greek robes and everything like that, just basically bickering with each other. It's like, wow, the Greeks did
it. In all honesty, the only way that would work is if I drew us all in that nerdy comic book guy from Simpsons, and did in that art style, and then just draw us all in that Roman or in those Greek robes. Unfortunately, I can't do that because it would take up every ounce on the actual image. It would be nothing but fat guys in robes.
No, I'm just funny. Samaj, you could have just done
no, you just have
a robot in a robe.
You just have the robot in a robe, and or have the robot holding everyone in the palm of his hand. Everyone's bickering at the same time.
Oh my god!
I'm going to tell you right now, Samaj. I think that's a bad idea because I don't want you to do Brachus's face on the statue of David. Please, God, no.
See, now he has to.
I thought it would be hilarious now that I got a better picture in my head. Making Red Robot Gundam size, having this goddamn argument, so he has to kind of kneel down, or he's like on some kind of we're on some sort of platform just so he can even be eye to eye with us and shit.
Well, but let's even go back to that thought of the whole plagiarism thing. I mean, yeah. If you outright ripped off every single aspect of one character, like Razor Fist says that the guy who created The Witcher did, fine, I get that because he kind of did build his own little media empire off of another story. However, that being said, there's a certain point where you're gonna have to just quit bitching about plagiarism because, like I said, it's getting to where there's nothing new under the sun.
And the question is how transformative, of a character is The Witcher. And I'll be honest with you, The Witcher is more separated from Elric of Melbonona.
Red, I'll pronounce it for you. It's Melna Bonet.
Thank you. Then Lisa Bonet. Then to be fair, than Batman is from the Shadow, and yet if you describe them selectively, which is what Razor does. Again, I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying he's being too nitpicky. But if you describe them selectively, then yeah, they're almost identical. But if you describe them like holistically to get the total of the character, they're really not that much alike.
They have different drives for one.
Yeah, Geralt isn't even like a prince or something. He doesn't have his own kingdom or any of that. There's a whole bunch of shit. He doesn't have a sword that's trying to kill him. Any of that shit. Well, maybe not the same way.
The closest he has is the potions he used. They kind of fuck with his body.
Yeah, but
that's still a different. It's a different thing thematically for sure.
Oh yeah, and there's not necessarily anything. How to put this? I mean. There's been a couple of versions of Superman done, okay, and that's fine, because if you take a good launch point idea, which is why I'm never all that upset about remakes or retellings. This is going to be like the fourth time they're doing Dune, and I'm excited to see it. Why? Because I fucking love Dune.
Well, I think
we're the minority in that.
Well,
Red, we both.
Red, I think the real problem with Razor Fist is that he is a bit of a purist in certain ways. Which those are the kind of people though that will keep you honest. I have to throw that out. They will keep you honest.
Has he ever made a connection saying that Superman was nothing more than 1930s modern day Hercules?
No, I don't think he ever has.
Oh, because if you actually go back to the old comic books of Superman and shit before he started flying in the 1940s because of the radio show. Realistically, when you actually look at Superman, it's nothing more than a retelling of Hercules and his 12 labors and shit like that. But from a more dick perspective, because Hercules in the stories was a bit of a dick. Hercules was a hero who would go from place to place throughout Greece to basically, be a hero and so on and so forth. And then you have several comic books later, Action Comics #1, introducing this new hero. But if you read the old comic books from the 30s and 40s, Superman's an asshole. He's extorting people. He's joining up with the mob.
He breaks down an underground mining facility just to make it so the owners give their employees like benefits and stuff like that.
Yeah, like he is an asshole, and he's not much of a hero, but like still even. By those days' standards, he would be considered a hero and shit like that. So when you actually make the comparisons to Hercules and Superman, it's essentially the same guy, just, obviously one is more of a comic book character. And even then, just a few years prior to Superman's existence, there were Hercules comic books.
Well, Brockus, if you stop and think, if you go back and read the story of Samson, Samson was like almost like a Hercules ripoff, and he was he was a complete fucking dick.
Well, if you think about it for a second, Samson is in his own way. He is a classic superhero. He has a weird weakness. He has superhuman powers, and his dick gets him in trouble, just like Batman.
Oh wow, that's actually very.
That is pretty accurate. And then you slap on the fact that when you think about it, when you say what superpowers a superhero is going to have, what are the ones that immediately come to mind? Super strength and flight, typically. Yep. For most people, are going to be the first ones to come to mind. Then you look back at old stories of the gods and the heroes. Those tend to be the first powers attributed to heroic deeds, acts of great strength, or traveling great distances in short time, lengths of time.
Yeah,
well, I mean, Igor, to add on to what you're saying, just look at most like DC. Who's the head honcho in the DC universe? If you want to call him that, it's Superman. And why? Because he's got super strength. And then you look at like the movie The Incredibles. Why was Mr. Incredible such a big thing? Super strength. It seems like the greatest hero, even in was it My Hero Academia? I've been watching that. The greatest hero in that
so good.
The greatest hero is literally All Might.
Yeah, the greatest hero in that story is super strong. And then, of course, the kid telling the story, who's the main character in the show, he inherits that super strength, and he's telling the story of how he became the greatest hero. So it's like, the guy who's super strong seems to always be the one on top.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
But the Bitching Witch did actually mention something in the chat that kind of makes me want to ask you guys an interesting question.
Go for it.
She specifically said that she's tired of the specifically it was fuck this Batman versus Superman shit. I'm a fan of villains, not heroes deep down. And I actually have been thinking this way for quite a while now. Are we really attracted to comic book characters or comic book heroes because of the character they themselves are, or are we really more interested in the villains they have to fight?
Oh, Brockus. If you think about it, look at all the comic books. I think we are more attracted to the villains just to see the shit they're going to cause that the hero has to deal with. But if you look at every comic book superhero, if all the villains got together, there should be like a massive fucking, like if you put them on two sides of the scale, the villain side should be like almost to the floor, because every hero has to have a whole laundry list of villains that they fight in every other comic.
True.
Well, yeah, they're the main character. But I would say, I think if you're going to get this, I hate to bring up the Batman versus Superman thing, but because she's trying to avoid it specifically. But here's the thing: another reason why Batman may be more popular than Superman, because from a story point of view, Batman's villains, most of them are much more interesting than Superman.
Oh yeah.
But he just has such a better rogues gallery. Like,
you look at Superman. He's so strong.
Boring.
What? I mean, that's the drawback of Superman. When they design for villains for him, they have to design around the fact that he is so ridiculously strong, ridiculously fast.
Not necessarily. Superman's best villain is just a really smart man. Lex Luthor is amazing.
Wrong.
He has
He has a giant mecha suit with kryptonite cannons.
But that's not most of the fights. Most of them are just like, hey, do this, and you can't touch me as well.
Yeah, and they tend to use his weakness against him quite a lot, which is understandable. But I just, even then, I mean, I think it just, because they're much, also the other thing is that most of the villains of Batman and Batman himself are largely at a slightly more relatable scale.
Nope.
Because you could almost, if you wanted to write a paper about it and do a psychology of it, if you to think about it, you could almost go and look at Batman's rogues gallery for the most part. being archetypes of different mental disorders,
They've already
whereas
done that
Superman's are
multiple times.
kind of more about their powers than their personalities. Not that they don't have personality, it's just different.
Well, and Red, if you stop and think about it, as interested in as Batman's villains are, if you boiled them down to, I don't know, modern society, you could probably find at least all, if not most, of Batman's rogues gallery on fucking Tumblr.
True. That's actually very accurate.
Because
yeah, you're right. Not all of them, but most of them.
Well, let's just take a look at the kind of there's the asshole called the Riddler who thinks he's smarter than Batman, even though Batman constantly hands his ass to him by solving his riddles. You've got the Poison Ivy, the enviro nut who hates people because they keep fucking with nature.
But she uses her sexuality to get them to stop fucking with nature by fucking them to death.
Then you've got the Penguin, the guy who's got an unhealthy obsession with birds.
I will say Penguin is one of my favorite Batman villains. I don't know why, I just like him, okay?
He's a businessman. He just happens to have some shady business practices.
I actually prefer the New Age Penguin because they stopped making him a legit
boss?
threat. Like, yeah, they turned him into a mob boss more than anything else, because in the past they tried to make him like this actual hand-to-hand combat expert. Like, he could actually take on Batman.
All the various
in
gadgets.
fighting.
He had almost as many gadgets as fucking Batman.
Yeah, it was fucking stupid
I
as
like
shit.
that aspect. He was like a low-rent Batman in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I hate my neighbor's dog.
Yeah, I like both iterations of him, the combat focused one and the more gangster version. Both parts I like.
Red, I can tell you exactly why you like the Penguin. It's probably because from way back in the 60s, the first time we all heard Burgess Meredith do that. Wah, 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 wah.
Yeah,
we just all kind of fell in love.
Cesar Romero as the Joker is still one of my favorites, as silly as it is. And he's one of my favorite Jokers because here's the thing. Jack Nicholson's Joker is kind of like this, and Heath Ledger's Joker is none of this. But if someone said that the clown prince of crime, and even Mark Hamill's Joker doesn't quite land it, Cesar Romero is just insanely silly. But underneath it, there's this undercurrent that he will kill a motherfucker just because he thinks it's funny. But it's not obvious. You really have to think about it for a minute that he will kill you. He's just not. It's just not going to seem like it. He seems less threatening, which makes it all the worse to me. I don't know.
Well, you kind of got a point there because it really, to me, not all of them, but most of the Joker performances from that point on were based on Cesar Romero's Joker.
They are,
Yeah.
Oh, and well, I mean, that show for all the people give it, ribbing for as goofy as it was, and don't get me wrong, it was. Even as a kid, I knew it was goofy. They set the tone because I think it might not be the first time it was that these characters were ever acted out live, but it was the first time it was that popular. So you set the tone a little bit about how these characters feel, and it did such a great job because they got really good actors to do it. And
Samaj, draw us as villains. I call dibs on Magneto.
God fucking damn it. Red, would you do me a favor? I got to go handle something. Would you hand me the bat shark repellent?
All right, so should I go over to the Deadpool 2 stuff?
Yeah, I might as well jump over to one of the other subjects we had.
All right, so this is just stupid. So apparently, one of the post-credit scenes for Deadpool 2 is Deadpool tells Cable, hey, I know a specific place we need to go back in time. Turns out it's like 20th century Germany. Mm-hmm. And it's Deadpool strangling a baby. And it turns out it's baby Hitler and him saying, the world will take me for this.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Well, you know what though? That is Deadpool in a nutshell.
Yeah.
That's hysterical.
And apparently they had to cut it out because no, you can't show Deadpool killing a baby.
But it's baby Hitler.
It's baby Hitler. Oh my God.
That's fucking hilarious.
I can see why they cut it, but the reality is they should have left it in.
No, because apparently, like the scene, it's like you see Deadpool strangling the baby from the perception of the baby.
Okay.
Okay. Damn it, that's even fucking funny.
Yeah, that's actually even better.
Here's the thing. Here's my take. Also, the reason why I approve of this and should be in the movie, because I watched Downfall and I watched a Nazi kill their kids and manage to get to survive that. I can watch a comedic death of a baby Hitler. I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that this is at the same time period that movie, The House Jack Built, came on, and people were getting pissy over that. You guys know about that movie?
What movie?
What movie?
The House that Jack Built.
Nope.
It's a French horror film about a serial killer that Matt Damon plays. And in that movie, Matt Damon shoots 2 kids in the head. And people were so outraged, they walked out of the theater.
Okay, but people,
He's the bad guy.
people pull on your goddamn big boy pants. The reason villains do this shit is so you fucking hate them. They're the villain, the guy that's supposed to get his goddamn ass kicked by the hero. For fuck's
Yep.
Okay,
sake,
I'm going to point out something that the Joker has done that some people like would probably find unpopular or very not cool and stuff, but you got to remember it's the Joker. In the short story written by Kevin Smith himself, at one point the Joker goes to Maxie Zeus, who is a low-budget fucking crime boss, essentially, who has some sort of condition where he believes he's an actual god and shit. Maxie was still on his meds and everything like that, and he actually decided to turn things around. He's Greek, he's blah, 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 this shit, whatever. The Joker eventually escapes prison to find out that his Joker venom that was given to Maxie to be distributed and actually kill people while he was in prison and shit was redistributed as an actual fucking party drug. The Joker is pissed, obviously. So he goes to Maxie and he basically tells him, I'm very displeased with what you did to my Joker venom because you did not do as you were instructed to do and shit. How the Joker ends this particular story, this particular interaction, is he went to Maxie's nephew's school. It was a private school, and it's a school for boys and all that stuff. And he's got them held hostage. That's how he gets Maxie's fucking attention. Maxie goes there, they talk and all that stuff, and then they're outside, and the Joker says, if you betray me again, I'm going to blow you up like a school full of Greek kids. Or unibrow kids, something along those lines. And he's like, wait, what? The school behind him, with everyone still inside, blows the fuck up. Maxie and his men are just standing there watching it happen. The Joker's car pulls up. He gets in the back seat. He sticks his head out the window and says, get it, and then drives off. And I'm like,
damn.
Oh, damn.
fuck! That's the most devastatingly horrifying thing I think I've ever known the Joker to do. And that's why he's the Joker. He will fucking kill kids to make a goddamn point.
Well, but these shitheads seem to miss the point that people seem to not comprehend what evil is anymore. Evil is, especially Joker kind of evil. That's like chaotic evil.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just to show everyone, this is what the movie looks like. It is not like one of those, really clean slasher films. It is a very gruesome slasher film. A movie that, kids would be shot in the head here.
Well, but that's the whole point I'm trying to make, Darnell, is, I mean, there's people who there's serial killers who will fuck and murder kids in the real world. So do you comprehend the nature of evil now, or do I have to explain it more? I don't understand what, I mean, for fuck's sakes, there were, I don't know. Somebody help me out here.
People think that everything has to be sunshine and rainbows, and you can't understand why people would do horrible things without any justification.
Well, I can, on the flip side, to be a devil's advocate, I could understand that there are certain amounts of bad behavior, basically villainous things that we can handle on screen, or even just in our face, that we'll swallow. There's a certain limit to it. I'm not saying it's right to say, hey, you shouldn't do that, but I can also, on the flip side, say I can understand why I go, that's too far for me. I don't want it. Like, I mentioned before, I enjoyed Downfall, but I never want to see it again, because at one point you get to see one of the characters, they murder their children, and because that actually happened. I never want to see it again. I'm glad I watched it, but it was too much for me. I never want to see it again. I don't even have kids. I can't imagine how someone who does have kids can watch that shit. It was horrifying.
I figured it out.
It made total context. In context, it made sense. It should have been in. They shouldn't have. That I would have been more upset if they'd have glossed it over. But I don't want to watch the movie ever again. Once was enough. Thank you.
Well, there you go, Red. That's kind of a show of, certain things being portrayed. I can understand they'd be a little traumatic, but at the same time, it was an important part of the story. If they'd have left that out, how would it have affected the movie?
Exactly, because it was based on real events. Now, on the flip side of that, if they had kind of just had it off screen, it might have been easier to swallow, and I could understand that decision too. So I get it, why people don't think that may be going a bit too far, because it's maybe too far for them. What I would say is, well, perhaps that media wasn't for you. Now, comic books, and comic book related things, we expect a different level of tone sometimes, and that's probably part of the problem, because we really don't expect it to be quite that bad most of the time, unless it's like an indie comic or some shit.
Samaj, clearly you're Thanos, obviously. So these are the people I think everybody should be drawn as. Me, I'm Magneto. I call dibs. Igor's Doctor Doom. Red Robot is Ultron, but you still have to make him fucking gigantic because that's part of the joke. Magnus is Sabretooth. And Darnell,
I'll be Two-Face or Sinestro.
It has to be Marvel, you fuck.
You didn't say Marvel.
Make Coppola a shitty Spider-Man villain.
Well, you know what? He could be the Toad.
Oh.
Well, I can make him the most horrible supervillain the Marvel Universe has ever dealt with. I shall make Darnell Squirrel Girl.
Worst hero character villain ever. Make it so
that's a grand example of a character that's been just completely fucked by the whole situation.
No, wait. Make me on Octavius.
She used to be kind of sexy, and then they turned her into a furry with Down syndrome.
Yeah.
Funny thing about that,
Goblin.
Going back to the topic where you're talking about like bad things happening as being part of the story. I just finished Far Cry 5 today, and both main endings are horrendous. No, whatever you do not win at that game. They're so good. Both endings are just phenomenal. I know there's a third one, but I'm talking like if you actually play through the whole game.
Fair enough.
No, there you go.
I could ruin it, but I'm sure there's people in the audience that actually want to, get through it themselves.
Yeah, no, that game's new enough that we don't want to do that.
Shut up, Dopo. You can't be Green Goblin or Maximus the
Maximus the Mad.
You said Maxius.
No, I spelled it wrong.
Because you suck. Anyway,
well, you know what? Make him fucking what's his name from the TV universe where Long Shot and Scatter Shot came from, or whatever. What is it?
Mojo.
Mojo. Turn him into Mojo.
Hold on a second. If
you know what? Fuck it. I will be Mojo.
Wait, hold on. If Marvel comic book villains count, I want to be the Shogun Warriors version of Megatron. How's that for obscure, motherfuckers?
Actually, that would probably
Shogun
work.
Warriors, they had a villain called Megatron who was a giant gold robot. I kid you not. Shogun Warriors is Marvel, and it's fucking canon, goddammit.
You know what's actually funny about the Squirrel Girl thing? I was just remembering this. Earlier on Twitter, I was watching reading a bit of a thread where somebody was essentially trying to talk shit on Jawbreakers. And it eventually devolved into talking about Squirrel Girl. And I think it was because at some point somebody brought in the writer for Squirrel Girl, or the chick that's head of, like, you know, the head person for Squirrel Girl and stuff. And she had, or in the thread, there were people saying it's a bad book. In my opinion, it's a bad book. It's got bad writing. It's got bad artwork. I don't like it. It sucks. Somebody was just, you know, trying to fucking, you know, defend it, White Knight and all that stuff. And even tried using, well, like, the numbers don't lie, and it's a very popular book, and it's like it's actually not if you compare it to other numbers. Like, it's so far in the thousands that it's almost in the 10,000s, and it's fucking sad. And this person is trying to say, see how good that it's selling, is bullshit. But how it kind of ended for me when I actually jumped in, a video with it's a comic book fan holding up 2 issues of Squirrel Girl 1 and 2, and saying, as somebody who's actually bought the books and read them, hoping that the writing and the art would actually get better, only to watch it devolve into get worse. I have to say the books are actually really, really bad. Then throws them, picks up another one and says, and the My Little Pony comic books are much, much better in comparison. And I'm like, God damn it, of course, the fucking brony. But then drops that and picks up a Deadpool classic and says, but this is what Marvel should have strived to. And I'm like, oh, boom! And you can't say much because it's a black dude.
Well, and the funniest part of all this is like I was talking about earlier with the customer's always right. If the easiest way to explain that concept to these stupid assholes is when they say the customer's always right, think of it like a viral video. When you get a little video on the internet, the reason it goes viral is because, like, if I sent it to Brockus, Red, and Samaj and said, oh, you guys have got to check this shit out, this fucking video blew my mind, or it was funny as hell, or whatever. That's the whole concept of the customer's always right. Because you come out with something, a product, whatever it is, and I see it, and oh my God, it was so good, I had to show it to my friends, and then they show it to a bunch of people they know, and then you just got it flying off the fucking shelf. That's the whole concept these assholes are missing. It's like, well, fuck the fans. I'm going to write whatever the hell I want to, and, well, that just means my wallet's going to be closed as I stroll past the comic book store to get something that will actually entertain me.
Well, you know what's really sad though? If you guys know Mim Headroom?
Yeah.
Okay. He's done a couple of videos on some of the My Little Pony comics as examples. He was being completely serious of good writing, and he's not even wrong. The people, as he's like, here's how you write a good comic book, and he said, the reason it's so ridiculous is I'm having to point you to a My Little Pony comic book for good writing. What the hell is going on with the universe? And he's completely right. They're actually really the concepts they convey are actually really well done.
Well, to be fair, the My Little Pony fandom, or at least their writing team, they're pretty based as fuck. They've been actually taking jabs at social justice warriors, even in the cartoon shows, for quite some time. It's been quite surprising to see. Same thing with, like, the most blatant one was actually the Adventures of Gumball. Actually fucking calls out and says, I've studied the ways of the social justice warrior.
Actually, used that clip for a while.
Yeah, Igor put that clip in the intro for Shitlords for a while, but
yeah.
No, but that goes to show exactly what I was talking about. Is how sad does it make you that something as ridiculous as My Little Pony has better writing and storylines than something like, oh, I don't know, X-Men, or fucking what's the latest one? Fucking Mark Waid screwed up. Was it Daredevil or something?
No, it was Captain America.
Mark Waid did screw up fucking Daredevil, but yeah, he recently screwed up Captain America.
Isn't he signed to do Superman now?
Mark Waid wouldn't be assigned to do
that's
Superman.
not Michael Bendis. That's the guy that did Riri is now doing Superman.
You know, I really wish that we could go back to the days when the comic books writers and artists didn't have this obsession with pushing their own political fucking views onto the readers and such like that, or consistently giving us bad artwork, bad writing, and telling us that we're still wrong for thinking that it's bad and shit like that. Like,
well, do you remember when everything wasn't fucking political, and the only time people had political arguments was like if two guys were sitting in a diner and the president was on TV, and one guy was like, "Oh, I love that guy," and the other guy's like, "Oh, fuck him, I hate that guy."
Well, you can't exactly say that because the X-Men were literally a political fucking statement by Stan Lee.
If I may, the X-Men were literally a political statement. But here's the fucked up part. Here's how you know it was done well, because you can post hoc take the X-Men and make it in your mind about multiple different issues that are similar. You don't have to know whatever it was they were intended. It's subtle and malleable enough. It could be about racism. It could be about classism. It could be about any number of fucking things, and you'd still be right.
Well, Stan Lee actually went on record in an interview. In an interview, Stan Lee did specifically say on record that the X-Men were a literal allegory for racism in the 1960s.
Oh yeah, I know. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
We can even know and still logically apply it to things that it wasn't intended for.
Very true.
Because it's done that well.
Yeah, and so like what? But even back all the way to the 1940s, Captain America was nothing more than war propaganda for children and American citizens to actually back America to join World War II. Before then, in 1939, with Action Comics, Superman was in various different political fucking comic books and stuff like that. So comic books have had a very long history of, politics in their books and everything like that. The only problem is, up until the last decade or so, or last, I would even argue 20 years, we didn't have writers and artists consistently pushing their extreme right or left wing fucking ideologies into the comic books to basically force, well, not necessarily force, but convince the readers, which are primarily still kids, to believe and think a certain way. If you look at a lot of different comic books, especially with one of the
I've got a theory. I got a theory on that. The art of subtlety has died.
Oh, it definitely has.
But, yeah, and that's the problem, because you can still enjoy the X-Men even if you aren't necessarily down with the racism allegory or even don't care about it, because it's still good writing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I got a serious off-topic technical question for everybody.
I don't know.
Are you supposed to see smoke when you fart?
Oh,
How hot was the
eating
thing you
cigarettes?
ate, Magnus?
I'm not gonna lie, Magnus. One time I was naked and I farted, and I could have swore I saw smoke come out of my ass crack.
Use less baby powder.
Oh, okay.
It was a really weird fucking moment. I was about to take a shower. I farted really fucking hard, and I swear I thought I saw an actual cloud come out of my ass. I was just like, did I just? I think I was a little doozy, like at the time. Like I was too tired.
The effort of that fart was such that it actually made you hallucinate, apparently.
Well, it was so strong it scratched my ass too at the same time.
that was just a quick off-topic joke, just to add a little levity. But yeah, that
went out.
Well, I think the words I should have used was overtly political.
Yeah.
To correct, because I mean, yeah, you're right. They have always been political, but I'm talking like where they're practically cramming it up your fucking nose on every page.
Right?
And I think both what you're saying, Magnus, pretty much the writers having the book slammed to your face saying, "Do you get it?"
Yeah, and some of and just the cringeworthy, just ham-fisted and just tone deaf. The way that it's done is just like, no.
Well, that's the part of the characters that kills their relatability, is really what it is. Because, like us, I'm pretty sure in our day-to-day existence, we don't walk up to everybody and tell them just right out of the fucking gate what our fucking politics are. I mean, I know I don't. I know I've got more important fucking business to attend to that is part of my daily life or part of my job that has absolutely dick to do with fucking politics.
Oh yeah.
Magnus,
I have a.
I was sorry, but I was gonna say I'm a political science major, and there's still people that don't know my politics.
And we don't care.
That's interesting.
That's
No, that's exactly my point.
Discussion, then we care. But I mean, when we're talking about nerd stuff, I don't care.
I think I can blame vegans for that problem, is because that they're the ones that the first words out of their mouth to anybody they first meet is, "I'm a vegan."
True.
It's like, whoop-de fucking do. What do you want, a fucking kale cookie?
You know, not too long ago, I actually had an opportunity to buy X-Men Gold #1, that very controversial issue that people basically, Captain Cummings and Diversity in Comics covered this, but I specifically found it through Captain Cummings. In the actual book, the artist who was originally slated to do this project, and I think they were hired on to do like the first 12 issues or something like that. In the very first issue, the artist put a passage from the Quran on Colossus' t-shirt, which they later had to delete off of his t-shirt, but it was basically a kill all Jews fucking passage. And in an actual panel, because the X-Men are playing baseball, in one particular panel, the very German Kurt Wagner is taking a swing at the baseball, and in that very same scene, the very Jewish Kitty Pryde is seemingly being hit in the face with a baseball bat.
Is that the same issue where Rogue goes up to catch a long fly ball and plant the kissy mark on Air Force One?
I don't think.
No, that isn't. Rogue wasn't in that book.
One then. It was an X-Men baseball game. That was fucking hysterical.
Igor, am I supposed to be getting a notification that the early show is early again?
That got blocked by the Olympic Committee, so I had to cut out the portion that they were claiming. It was easier than sitting in art, letting it go through the YouTube processes.
Well, hold on. What part got cut out? What part did you have to cut out?
Apparently, there was a 30-second clip of a snowboarding sequence, but someone had added like Super Mario coins that the snowboarder was.
They actually fucking pulled that. Are you goddamn serious?
Yep.
Oh, fuck these assholes.
Earth?
But the reason why I brought that up is because I had a chance to actually buy the unedited version, because, no joke, there was an actual recall for those comic books because of the controversy behind it. The comic book shop down the street from my house had the unedited version and was still selling it. I could have bought it, but Zell somehow fucking convinced me not to buy it. I don't know. I don't remember why exactly. He used enough honeyed words to basically convince me, don't buy it. But do you have any idea how much that would actually be worth years down the line? Because they had to reprint it and edit certain scenes so it wasn't so anti-Jewish.
I'll have to fantasize about that with my copy of X-Men Gold with all those various different things that I have.
Oh, fuck you, Samaj.
I will. I also have the edited version and the unedited version just for context.
You rat bastard.
But here's the thing. I don't understand why they were griping about racism, because, well, kebabs are always racist. They're the only ones that are allowed to fucking get away with it in total.
That reminds me, there were a few issues of I can't remember what comic it was. It was X-Men related, where they had some members of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and a few other suspect characters doing some not less than legal stuff during the Gulf War. And for as much political as that was, I mean, it had to be. It was actually treated rather well, because the villains, most of them were like being forced to fight for Iraq and all that. It was actually kind of, but the people that the U.S. were using were former villains for the most part, so it was kind of complex and nuanced, but never down your throat. It was just presented as though, well, these are the fucked up things that happened during war. I'm like, it was readable. It was decent. Oh my god.
Huh.
Yeah. again, it's there were always political, like, this is one of the biggest annoyances I do tend to have when it comes to talking about this subject in certain, like, you know, Facebook groups and shit that I was a part of, or I am still a part of. I just haven't had the decency to completely leave Facebook just yet. But I've actually gotten into a few discussions with people on this type of thing. People always try to make the excuse comic books have always been political. And I always want to tell them, yes, understandably, they have always been political. However, this isn't just being political. This is essentially trying to brainwash and control young minds to think a very specific way. When the Civil War first came out, the very first Civil War series that Marvel did with Cap versus Iron Man and stuff, that was actually a very interesting story, and it caused a very heated argument between me and another member of that particular group, in which the two of us actually started arguing back and forth about eventually weapons and ownership of weapons and stuff like that. And like, it just got really weird. But that's the kind of thing that, you know, when it comes to politics, that's what comic books did do. They used to give you this sort of idea of, was Iron Man right? Was Captain America right? Because it's, you know, this big questioning thing of, like, you know, morality and such. Like, should we actually register everybody? Well, what Iron Man was proposing was actually based off of the Mutant Registration Act. The Mutant Registration Act was actually pretty fucked up because it basically said anyone who is a mutant will never be able to hide in America, essentially creating Schindler's List all over again kind of thing. And the Registration Act was essentially a slightly better version of that, to which anyone with superpowers would be on a list and would never be able to hide. And if they ever used their powers outside of, like, say, being a sanctioned hero and such, being a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. and whatnot, they would be considered a criminal. It's just as bad as doing drugs or drinking in certain areas you're not allowed to drink in and all that stuff. And you'd be arrested and you'd be detained and you'd be told never allowed to use your powers again, blah, 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 all that stuff. Which, in essence, sounds decent. But then you've got Captain America saying, if you have the power to save lives, you should. And you shouldn't have to fucking tell people who you are, because if you don't want the fame and fortune and glory, you don't need to have it. So you can wear a mask if you want. And it was just this constant back and forth between the two of them. And it was a fucking amazing book. And I fucking loved it. I own the entire Spider-Man run of that. But then we had Civil War II. There was no question. Everyone sided with Iron Man. There was no questioning it. Captain Marvel could not convince a fucking a mentally challenged kid to see her side of things. We should be able to stop crime before it happens. Bitch, that's the Minority Report argument all over again. If they haven't actually done it, then there's no fucking problem. Okay, like that this is where we get into the actual issue. Should you stop crime before it happens? Well, I mean, yes, obviously. But there was no actual proof that Bruce Banner was going to turn into the Hulk and kill everybody.
Sorry, go ahead.
The context between Spider-Man holding a beaten and possibly dead Captain America was completely lost because all they saw was one image of it and shit like that. It turns out the reason why that happened is because Captain America was actually an evil bastard, secretly pretending he wasn't an evil bastard, and eventually going to try to actually take over the entire world, to which the Avengers would eventually have to beat the shit out of him, and then there would most likely be a Spider-Man triumphantly holding a fucking dead Captain America in his arms. Fair enough. But again, what was going on in Civil War II, there was no question. Side with Iron Man. He made the most sense. Everything he was doing made sense. Now, he stopped making sense in the last couple of issues, which kind of upset me a bit, because instead of actually being the level-headed, actual good person in this whole thing, the one with the actual moral standings that's like, no, yeah, we side with you, he turned into a tyrannical douche, which put him in a coma.
Well, and let's just take a moment to fully appreciate this right here.
Comic pros in 2018 are retarded. Okay, once again, here's the foolproof way to destroy me. 1, make good comic books. Comics, that's true. 2, don't call customers Nazis. Again, accurate. 3, don't block customers. I don't know who's doing that, but yeah, that's a good idea. 4, don't play moral police. That's it. You can make me completely irrelevant. And I yes, 100% agreed to all of that.
Yep.
Rockets.
And can you guys see the picture underneath that he posted?
Yes, of course. That is how lawyers talk. No surprise there. Damn it. What is that? Nick Recchietta?
I think it's Nick Recchietta.
Okay. Is saying that from what he sees, Wade's behavior meets the criteria to bring 2 civil torts. I don't know what torts is.
AG, Attorney General. Basically, when you do underhanded business practices.
Oh, yeah, and that's definitely what it is. He's also saying Wade has made it way harder to defend. Nobody's predicting the outcome. There's nothing to stop Meyer from self-publishing or finding another publisher, so there's no cause of action as well. Oh, God, please stick to comics.
Yeah, and we can tell this Nick Rakita here is a lawyer and is like, of course, you know he's a good lawyer because he's got free Dankula in the name.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was saying, Brockets. We were saying who's blocking that that shop that's claiming like that a diversity comics fan kicked out our windows. They've been blocking people. They've been putting a block bot.
Oh, okay.
You know, I'm almost tempted to search Twitter and see if I might just happen to be blocked by some idiot like Mark Wade. I don't know why, but that would so totally fuck. Well, no, but I'm just saying, finding out one of these douche waffles has me blocked would just so fucking make my entire night.
I want to give you that shop that's doing the block bot to see if you're there.
Oh, there's a good chance that if they have diversity in comics blocked, then most likely they have me blocked. The whole diversity in comics debacle, this whole fucking story is just, it could have been avoided. It's extremely retarded. It could have been avoided a long time ago if Marvel creators had just listened to the fans. If they had just listened to the store owners, when the store owners would consistently keep writing to Marvel saying, "We didn't order these books. Why did you send them to us?
We're not paying for them."
Axel Alonso actually tried to claim, "Look at all the sales we've been getting, or how many books we've been sending people and stuff." And he's trying to act like shipping numbers equated to sales numbers somehow, even though these books were going into comic book shops to collect dust because no one was buying them. Believe me, I'm one of those people that was massively disappointed when I would go into a comic book shop and I would see my favorite characters or characters I've always been a fan of, and I was so glad to see that they were getting their own books and everything. So I'd pick them up and I'd buy a couple more issues, and then I think around maybe the 4th or 5th issue, suddenly it's just this heap of just shit piling up. Mockingbird #1. Super excited for. I actually am a fan of Mockingbird, or was a fan of Mockingbird. I love that character. Bobby Morse was one of my favorite side non-superpowered characters. She was so fucking amazing as an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Loved her. When I found out she was getting her own book, I was super fucking excited. Bought issue #1. Fucking great book, or at least that's what I thought. Issue #2, a little confusing because it didn't continue from issue #1. It was jumping into its own story, and I'm like, maybe they're going back to the old formula of kind of like, you know, different adventures type thing. That actually is pretty cool. I like the little nostalgia there. Issue #3, what the fuck am I reading? Issue #4, fuck you. All the way up to issue 7, where the infamous "Ask Me About My Feminist Agenda" cover was. And I was just pissed. I was very fucking pissed. And then, of course, there was also Spider-Gwen. I actually really enjoyed Spider-Gwen. I have the entire first 6 issues of Spider-Gwen. Then after the Secret Wars run, they came out with Radioactive Spider-Gwen, which was the continuation from there. I got 6 issues in, and then I finally had enough. The writing was decent, but the art was shit. The art just it didn't do it for me. And even then, because it's an alternate world, the writing was like I let certain things go because it's an alternate world. But then I look back and I'm just like, this would have never fucking happened. I'm sorry, but in the 1940s, I highly doubt in this alternate world, this universe number 36, I don't think that a black woman would have actually been able to become Captain America instead of Steve Rogers.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the Spider-Man universe, you know how like the assassin shoots the guy that creates the super soldier for him, the scientist. He also shoots Steve Rogers and the guy that was the experimental, like the black guy that was the experimental prototype for the Captain America serum. So it becomes his daughter that becomes the new Captain America.
No. When the assassin gets in and shoots the doctor, he fires a couple of shots and one of them kills Steve Rogers. And in the panic, because they need a Captain America-esque character, there is a black female soldier. Already I'm questioning the fucking actual shit going on here. But yes, a black female soldier decides to jump into the capsule and become Captain America.
No,
Wait,
that's what Thor did.
Then where did the black guy came in? I'm trying to remember where he factored in as
Well, you know what,
Brockus,
thank you very much for the segue for this bad joke I found on Twitter.
Oh, those still crack me up from time to time. The black prototype for the super soldier serum actually comes from the New Avengers run. When they eventually introduced a Captain America light character who was basically just supposed to be like kid Captain America. Patriot. Patriot tells the story that his grandfather was actually.
No, I know that because from the book, Black, Red, and Blue. But
yes,
yeah, Black, Red, and Blue. But because I thought that he was in the Spider-Man verse as well.
No.
You know, I'm not surprised that like when you say Red, I mean like I'm not surprised that a lot of people out there are really upset with the treatment of all this. I would almost say that they're going into a rage. Hey, how about that Rage video game coming out there? Rage 2.
Oh god, the
right
sequel that
into
no one it's the sequel to a game that everyone's forgotten and a sequel that no one has asked for.
My favorite thing is in the lead up when you saw people looking at the pictures saying about the date, and people were saying, please don't let it be Rage 2. We will take Wolfenstein 3 over Rage 2.
Yeah. I've watched the clips for it. I'm like, okay, it looks interesting, but I am not enthused. It certainly, it was a game that flopped, and by the time I was somewhat interested in playing it, I got enough of the reviews at that time that are like, most computers don't run it. It's optimized horrible, and it failed as a game. So I never bothered to buy it, completely forgot about it. Rage 2 comes out for the trailers, and I'm going, why? I mean, why not just call it Rage and make it a complete reboot if you want to go this route?
Yeah.
I don't know what Rage and Rage 2 is, so hold on.
It's a first person shooter. It's supposed. I think they intended it to be a new big hit franchise, but nobody really gave much of a shit.
Brockus, imagine a more serious Borderlands. That's
it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at screenshots and it looks terrible.
That's on a related note, I finally did figure. It took me forever, but I finally did figure out what my problem with Borderlands 2 was.
What?
It's Borderlands.
Well, they managed to make the maps and missions so long and
linear,
full of enemies and lots of bullet sponge enemies that it just became tedious.
Yep.
It stopped.
It's a different type of. It's a fun game to play if you have a full group of friends to play it with. To solo is just boring as shit.
It's just optimized too much towards the group.
Yeah.
And some of the sequences just go on way too long, and the areas.
The pre-sequel is better. I soloed the pre-sequel and enjoyed that, but they're relatively short more tight spaces for the storyline missions, but Borderlands 2 is just so open. It gets to be kind of like you said, tedious.
Well, and I should point out that Borderlands is one of the few FPS games that I can even fucking stand to play.
It's fun. It's just one of those things I don't like to play it when solo though.
Yeah.
Did someone say solo?
No, don't fucking talk about that.
I think this is more comforting.
We don't want to talk about Soilo, thank you.
Oh my god. Okay, so does anyone care about spoilers at this point? I'm planning on seeing it, but I don't want to at the same time.
For what?
So, do you guys remember the bullshit controversy that came out when they had already announced Solo like a couple of years back?
No.
Which controversy?
One of the producers, I think, it wasn't one of the directors, but basically somebody had at some point went to social media and said, this is the movie that will show you how Solo got his name. Fans all over social media blew the fuck up and started screaming, I can't believe you're going to actually try to push this idea that Han Solo isn't his real name. That's so fucking stupid. You're going to ruin the character, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Guess what Zell recently found out and leaded into that they're doing?
It's not his real name?
Yeah, exactly that. That Han Solo isn't actually his real name, or at least Solo specifically isn't his real fucking name. And that it's a name he takes on at the end of the movie.
Lame.
I saw that coming. I saw that, because of the controversy, they basically had to come out and do a bit of crowd control and say like, oh no, that's not actually what we're doing. That's actually what we're doing. But we're going to pretend like that's not actually what we're doing because we totally know Star Wars.
I wonder
totally.
I wonder if that's why they had to reshoot the entire movie.
That's one of.
And that's what partially that disturbs me about the thing right now in the Hollywood. It's like, oh, if it's not working, we'll just redo the entire movie.
By the way, I found that story.
What?
The guy that ate the furry.
I bet he tasted Ipecac and Splooge.
What the fuck? Really?
I don't think it really matters, but did he eat a male furry or a female furry?
Well, he says if he wants to be an animal, he is legally allowed to be.
Okay.
So I would guess so, but thank you, Satan and Satire, for posting this. You made my night perfectly.
I'm not gonna lie. I think that's the only time where I actually condone cannibalism.
It's man world out there.
It depends on what kind of fursuiter he was. If he was like a cow or something like that, yeah, I could see that. Grill him up, make hamburgers, go nuts. If it was like a dog fursuiter or something, I'd be kind of disturbed and say he looks black and not Korean.
Oh.
he might be part Korean. You don't know. If we don't know these things.
Yeah, what would that be? Blurian?
Afro Samurai.
Wait. That's Blapanese.
No. I think at that point he had to be playing the song. I think I'm turning Japanese.
Well, that's a masturbation song, so I'm sure at some point he did.
Well, hey, when we're masturbating, we're all Japanese.
All right. Well, I have to go hit the recharge pod. I will see you animals later.
Yep. No problem.
See you, Ed.
Au revoir, arrivederci, aloha, sayonara, so long. And
take it easy.
Pasta lasagna.
Pasta lasagna.
Oh, now I want pasta.
Yeah, so do I. But then again, I want food in general. This goddamn tooth makes it so impossible to fucking chew anything. It hurts so.
Oh, I've had that problem myself a few times. I feel your pain, man.
Yeah, I got a broken wisdom tooth. It actually broke several months ago. I just never did anything with it because it was never a problem. The only annoyance I had to deal with was like picking food out of it.
And now it's rotten.
Kind of. It has a deep decay, and the bottom of the tooth is curved, so I need an oral surgeon to actually remove it, which sucks because I went to a dentist office in hopes that they would actually just remove it today, so I could actually, like, in a couple of days be able to, like, eat good food and all that shit. And nope. Couple more days of no food. I haven't really eaten anything in the last couple of days. It sucks.
Well, from what I was told when I had a couple of my wisdom teeth removed, that if you eat something like soup, you're fine.
Oh, I would eat soup. It's just that any kind of chewing motion that I do with my mouth, hell, even talking still hurts. But yeah, any kind of chewing motion I do will create this sharp pain, like Samaj has taken his stylus and jammed it straight into my mandible.
Eee.
Get soup you can drink then, like a tomato soup.
I don't like tomato soup.
Well, you
said
don't
like
tomato soup, but yeah, you can do anything. And holy fucking shit! You know what, guys? I'm starting to wonder if I should just get the fuck off Twitter right now, because I am finding the weirdest fucking shit today.
What the
Woo!
Samaj, do something with this, I think.
Wait, no, I didn't realize. This is what we need to send to Samaj.
No.
We need to send
Is her
titties
name
to
Eileen?
Samaj.
Look, no gimps. Okay, no gimps. I no.
Wait, no gimps?
Fuck you.
Yeah, none of that GIMP stuff. By the way, Bitching Witch, I know you're still in the chat. Go ahead and set some boob pics to Samaj. He needs them for research purposes.
Reasons.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I think we're winding down. Do you have anything else we want to talk about?
Other than raging on Solo?
We can talk about boobs and things.
Well, wait. Well, when we were talking about Jawbreakers, I actually wanted to show this meme that
Richard, Zach, diversity in comics. The coffin guy with all the brown. That's actually pretty funny. If anyone who doesn't watch diversity in comics, you might not know.
oh wow.
Diversity in Comics' his character is Zach. Richard is his real name. Diversity in Comics is the name of the channel. And in every fucking video and live stream he does, he coughs. Every fucking one of them. And it's just it's like a catchphrase for him now.
No, he even does it in the comment section.
Oh, fair enough.
Oh, well, there you go.
And then there's this, which we find out now that Joe Rogan's a fan of us. Well, not us, but on our side, I mean.
Yeah, I was gonna
surprising?
say, if Joe Rogan watches the cunt stream, I think we're doing something wrong. He should not be watching us. This is a guy who watches like the Discovery Channel religiously.
Yeah, but wait, no, but if he's watching us, then we're clearly doing something right. Because Joe Rogan, if we could get Joe Rogan on the show, boys, we've made it. That's high class, great A celebrity status.
We have rose to the cream of the
Except they wouldn't
YouTube
share us out.
degeneracy.
Here's the thing: if we want to reach Joe Rogan status, we actually have to start calling this a podcast and actually get it on iTunes.
And actually putting more effort than Hangouts.
Yeah, but that's more of a Schmeckle thing.
Well, you know what? I think I'd rather just stay where I'm at, because it's more fun to shit talk with your audience when you got a smaller audience.
True.
And then the last one.
I don't get it.
Big
Mark
Brother is
Wade.
watching you? Oh.
Why does he look like CB Cebulski bent him over his desk and is giving him the high hard one like he needs to?
because that's kind of what CB Cebulski did to him when he told him to get the fuck off of social media.
Oh man, I remember when Mark Waid was like an actual respected names when you were talking about comics.
Yeah, well, that's the fucked up part, and I think it was Samaj who brought it up earlier. Why are these people still in Marvel? Why exactly are these people allowed to do what they do? So there's the chief and editor, which was for the longest time Joe Quesada, but he eventually walked away to handle things from the Marvel Studios point. And then there's each individual book and each individual project has its own set editors as well. The chief and editor is just the head guy who basically controls everything else, which is what CB Cebulski would be at this point. Before him, of course, was Axel Alonso, and Axel Alonso replaced Joe Quesada. So each project has its editor, its writer, its artists, and so on. When you have someone like Mark Waid, who's been working in the industry for as long as he have, along with people like Gail Simone, they're names that people are familiar with. They've been in the industry for years. So when you want, people to almost be guaranteed to buy the book and shit, you get people like Mark Waid or Gail Simone to actually do the books and everything. You have them in the in every bit of the project as much as they possibly can, blah, blah.
Yeah, but, I think at this point I should point out that if Mark Waid has been in the industry as long as he has, you would think that it should apply to him that he should fucking know better.
Yeah, that's the other sad part is that I think what ended up happening was because Axel was told by the higher-ups to do certain things, and then Axel turned around and told the editors, okay, these are the things that we have to have in the books and everything like that. And people who were very left-wing decided to go to take it too fucking far. I don't know the actual ins and outs. John actually knows a little more than most people do, obviously. And we had him on a couple weeks back, and he sort of explained kind of what one of the biggest problems is. People like Mark Waid and Brian Michael Bendis are very extreme left-leaning people. Not necessarily saying that extreme left-leaning people are always like the problem or anything like that. It's just they were told to do certain things and they were never actually told no on certain projects. So when Mark Waid fucked up Daredevil, he wasn't reprimanded for it because Mark Waid had been around for a very long time before that. And, he did a lot of really good books and he did some really good stories and shit. Gail Simone, kind of the same thing.
Well, before we continue, I have to cut you off. And yeah, hard left-leaning people are always the problem.
I wouldn't say they're always the problem because the extreme right also is the problem. There are two halves to the exact same coin. So when you talk about ridiculous fucking extreme political leanings and shit, the lunatic left, you've got to remember the ridiculous right is just there too.
Well, I thought we were talking specifically comic book industry because
I was actually going to get to that. The only real problem is that there is no counter in comic books. In the comic book industry,
was Frank Miller. He was hilarious.
I wouldn't say Frank Miller was a counter to that because Frank Miller, I don't know what his political leanings is. He's been very hush hush about it. But no, I'm saying when it comes to people like Mark Waid and Brian Michael Bendis and Gail Simone and who's the one that some people actually have a strange heart on? Tess Fowler. When it comes to these people, they've been very open on social media about their left-leaningness. Then you've got people like Ethan Van Sciver and John Malin who probably don't have any real political leanings. They probably don't give two shits about politics like that. They just simply disagree and are immediately labeled right-wing extremists. Ethan Van Sciver spoke out against what was going on in Marvel, and all of a sudden he's labeled all right. John Malin, same fucking thing. I think that's probably the most depressing part is that the second someone disagrees, problems occur. I kind of feel like I'm rambling and going all over the goddamn place with this.
Just
That's
as
because everybody else seems to be going a little quiet here.
Yeah,
waiting
it
for
is.
him to finish.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was just waiting for him to finish. I don't want to interrupt.
Well, I also think that we're probably winding down. We've been at this for like what, a little over an hour or so, or
Mhm.
2 hours
2
now.
hours now.
2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good to go. So I don't know if Schmeckel's listening, so we might as well do our little outros, monologues. Yeah.
All right. Samaj, you want to do the thing, or should I?
Yeah, I'll let you do the thing.
All right. So tonight was Han Solo. We talked briefly about the Stanley impersonator, which that's pretty fucking crazy. Deadpool 2's Hitler scene, which was actually pretty fucking funny, and a whole lot of comic book talk, in which I still am going to try to convince Samaj to draw us as villains, and or do the we're standing there talking about just arguing about shit, dressed as in Greek robes and everything. The Greeks did it, all that shit.
And we had a couple of odd fart jokes and a couple of sidelines.
Yeah. Tonight, of course, with me and Samaj was Darnell, Magnus, Igor.
Yo.
We also had Red Robot. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
What else to say?
Good night.
Don't forget to check out Sunday Fun Day on every Sunday.
Oh yeah. Anybody want to do a little bit of a plug?
That was the plug. We're good.
Okay.